In this video, we will cover an initial configuration of IISLogs. If you go to our webpage at IISLogs.com, scroll down a little bit, you'll see a link, Quick Install Help. We're going to cover Phase 2 configuration. For reference, this video will cover pretty much everything that's in this article, so if you need documentation or for future reference, there is an article available online that covers this video. So let's begin. Start, all programs. Let's go to the program group, IISLogs 2, which means the IISLogs standalone exe, which is a console application, is installed on this system. Let's select IISLogs GUI, which is our graphical user interface program to manage all the settings of IISLogs. Let's select the config file in the installation path. In this case, it's C program files x86 IISLogs exe2. Let's click open. You'll be presented with the easy configuration screen, which is a list of sites that's on that particular system that's being run. In this particular case, there are 5 sites that are configured locally. The way it retrieves that list is it looks at the local metabase. In IIS6, it would read the metabase as normal. In IIS7, the IIS6 metabase compatibility module needs to be installed in order for this feature to work. So I'll just make you aware of that. We're going to select the default website and FRT, which is failed request tracing. Click Save. The configure specific directories to monitor option comes up. You'll notice there are 2 paths. Here there represents each site that was selected. You have a couple additional options that you can do here. You can either put additional folders that you want to monitor here, or if you had missed a couple sites, you could click the Easy Config button that would read the metabase. You could select them and then the folders would show up here. Let's click Next. The Configure Zip Archive Retention Policy is an important screen. The Enable Zip feature, we just check that. You'll be presented with the policy review. IISLogs has 2 policies that we have built in as safeguards to the system to make sure that an administrator has thoroughly tested in a non-production or an isolated environment, and we just want to make sure that the person who's testing the software has made backup copies of log files before even letting IISLogs process them. Go ahead and accept it. Click OK. The way IISLogs works is when it zips a file, it creates a new file on disk in the original location. If the delete original log file after zipped option is selected, it will remove the original log file. So we'll select that. The second policy comes up, the IISLogs delete file policy agreement. Again, this is an additional safeguard before you zip or delete files that you've reviewed and accepted them. IISLogs will not process any files until both policies have been accepted. So just be aware of that. Click OK. IISLogs uses for a calculation of hours, so we are going to select 168, which is 1 week. So any files that are 7 days or older will be zipped. We're going to leave the archive files in original log file directory. It shows local here. So click Next. The Configure Delete Feature Retention Policy is an addition to the previous policy. So what we're setting up is we're going to zip files that are 7 days or older, and we want to remove old zip files, so we'll select this option and put in 1,688, which I believe is approximately 10 weeks. So click Next. You have a couple options here for naming the files. Set up file naming options is by default it just appends the .zip extension at the end of when it's creating the file. You have the option to add some text before and after, and then you also can rearrange the day, month, and year to meet your requirements. For this video, we're just going to we're going to take the default. Click Next. In addition to the previous delete option, you can configure delete only directories feature. This is meant to handle additional folders that could have a separate policy. So if you wanted to enable this, you could have files in a particular folder that have some different requirements. For this video, we're just going to leave that blank and not enable it. Click Next. The Configure SMTP log directories option is for the Microsoft SMTP service. It is meant to take care of and help manage the files in the bad mail or drop folders. It only handles the file extensions of the SMTP files that are created. So if you run a SMTP service and need those files managed, you could use this option. You'd enable it here, and then it only deletes the files after a certain amount of hours. So for this video, we're just going to not enable it. Click Next. The Setup Report Mail Settings. This is an option to send a mail report after every time IISLogs runs on a system. So to enable that, you just click this. You would put your email address or some from address, maybe a standard alias or whatever for all from addresses. The to address only allows for one entry, so it could be either your email address or an alias or a distribution group to various people. So if multiple people need to be notified of this running on a system, then you would need to set up a distribution group or alias. The mail server defaults to localhost, but it could be whatever your smart host or mail server is where it relays mail on your network. Port 25, the mail subject can be, you can put whatever text you want in there. If you required authentication to your mail server, you would just select this and type in the user ID and type and retype the password. That would authenticate to your remote system. For this video, we're just going to leave that unchecked. Click Next. The Setup Log Settings, Path, and Service Interval. The log directory path is where IISLogs writes its own internal system logs for things like the mail report or other error tracking. We just ask that you leave that the default. The service interval is something used when you're installing Windows Service version. It allows when the time would run. In this video, we're doing the standalone exe, so this setting really doesn't apply. We'll click Next. We'll click Finish. You're presented with the IISLogs configuration, and it defaults to the specific directories option, which has those two folders that we originally selected. The Standard Settings tab shows the Enable Zip, the Delete Original File After Zipped. The article that I referenced earlier actually has this unchecked, so you would, in your testing phase, you could zip files and leave the original one. So it's easier if you just leave this unchecked, and you run IISLogs, test it out, make sure it does. You could extract the file, and then once you're comfortable, then you want to delete the original, you just select that. So, and then there's the Enable Delete feature checked with 1688. The SMTP config, which we did not enable, just showing you that's blank. The Delete Directories is blank. The Mail Settings is still blank because we did not select that. That concludes the initial configuration of IISLogs. There are a couple things that I want to cover that the article does not, so let's go ahead and close IISLogs GUI and save our changes. One, I mentioned that there's logic in IISLogs GUI to detect if it's been run on a system or not. We've had some support emails come in that people are not sure, so I just wanted to make you aware that IISLogs GUI will read this in HKey local machine software IISLogs. If this key is not listed there, it assumes that this is the first time it's running, and after you've saved your configuration, it writes the IISLogs key and creates an installed with a true value. So just make you aware of that. And secondly, as you are going through the policy agreements under the installation folder, logs, policy agreements, you will see a couple files here, the delete policy agreement and the file compression policy agreement. As you agreed to those, it was writing these out here just to show you that they were agreed upon. So I've had people email us and say that it's not processing files, and sometimes that maybe one policy was agreed but the other one wasn't. So this concludes our initial installation of IISLogs. We hope you find this helpful. Thank you.